A desert that moves. A desert that glows. A desert that breathes. Namibia is not empty, far from it. Across its dunes, where wind paints patterns older than time, life thrives in silence. Not loudly, not obviously, but cleverly, resiliently. Every grain of sand, every shift in shadow tells a story of survival. This isn't just a landscape. It's a living system. Adaptation, carved into every species. Beauty, not in abundance, but in precision. From fog-harvesting beetles to thousand-year-old trees, from scorched red plains to coastlines swallowed by mist, Namibia is a contradiction and a masterpiece. And if you stay with me, you'll see how this place, against every odd, manages to pulse with life. The Skeleton Coast, beauty and brutality. Start at the edge, the very edge of Africa, where the Atlantic collides with the world's oldest desert. The Skeleton Coast is not just a poetic name, it's literal. Shipwrecks rust along the sand, their twisted hulls stranded by unforgiving currents. Whale bones once littered these beaches, reminders of when whaling ships met their end here. It's a place where survival feels like a gamble. Yet in that harshness, beauty thrives. Morning fog rolls in from the Benguela Current, a cold ocean stream that chills the hot desert air. This fog is no small detail. It's the lifeblood of Namibia's coastal ecosystem. Plants tilt their leaves just so, funneling droplets into their roots. Beetles perform headstands, collecting dew on their backs and channeling it straight into their mouths. If that isn't ingenuity, I don't know what is. Here, every drop counts, and nature has become a master engineer. Drive inland a little, and you'll see something surreal. Brown hyenas, rare, shaggy, ghost-like hunters, skulk among the dunes. Lions, too, prowl the beaches. Desert lions. You heard that right. They've adapted to hunt seals in a landscape that looks more like Mars than Earth. That paradox, predators on sand hunting marine life, only happens here. It's one of Namibia's many contradictions that keep you off balance and utterly hooked. And then, the human element. The Himba people, semi-nomadic herders, survive in one of the driest regions on the planet. Their ochre-red skin, coated with a paste of butterfat and ochre stone, is not just striking, it's protective. It shields them against the sun and insects. When you stand with them, you see resilience etched into daily life. Herds of goats find water holes you wouldn't even notice. Every choice, from clothing to diet, is a dialogue with the desert. The Skeleton Coast also tells another story, a colonial one. German outposts once tried to tame this landscape. Diamonds sparked frenzied rushes that left ghost towns buried by sand. Kolmanskop, for instance, now lies inland but tells the same tale. Rooms filled knee-deep with dunes, piano keys buried in silence. Civilization tried to plant itself here, but the desert always wins. It swallows what it doesn't need. And somehow, that feels right. But here's the kicker. It doesn't feel dead. Standing at Cape Cross, surrounded by 100,000 Cape Fur seals, the air vibrating with barks, and the stench of fish, you realize this desert is louder than many jungles. It's alive, just not in the way we expect. Namibia forces you to adjust your definition of life. Instead of abundance, think precision. Every organism here is a specialist, a master of timing and adaptation. Miss your moment and you're done. Geologists love this coast too. Beneath the sands lie some of the oldest rocks on Earth, whispering tales of supercontinents long gone. Scientists study the sediment layers, tracing back epochs when oceans covered this land, then retreated. What you see on the surface, bones, wrecks, dunes, is just the latest chapter of an ancient story still being written. Sossusvlei and the dunes, the living giants of sand. Shift your gaze from the coastline inland, and the landscape begins to rise, not in mountains of rock, but in mountains of sand. Towering dunes, some nearly 400 meters high, sculpted by winds that have been working at their canvas for millions of years. This is Sossusvlei, perhaps the most famous image of Namibia, where sand doesn't just lie still, it breathes, it moves, it shapes light itself. The color hits you first. These dunes glow in hues that change by the hour. Fiery orange at dawn, a rich ochre by midday, and a deep, shadowy rust as the sun sinks. The sand is ancient, 5 million years old, blown in from the Kalahari and shaped by relentless winds. It isn't just pretty scenery. It's a geological clock, a monument to time itself. Now, picture yourself at Dune 45. It's one of the most climbed dunes in the Namib. As you trudge upward, each step sinks, sliding back half the distance you gained. By the time you reach the ridge, your legs ache, your lungs burn. But then, the view. A sea of rolling sand waves in every direction, like the world's largest abstract painting. And just for a moment, you forget the effort, because standing on top of a 170-meter dune at sunrise feels like standing on another planet. But here's the twist. It's not barren. The desert here is alive, only on its own terms. Springbok leap across the valleys of sand, feeding on tufts of dry grass that somehow grow where rain is a rumor. Oryx, with their long spear-like horns and white-striped faces, wander with an elegance that feels almost royal. Their secret? They can raise their body temperature safely above what most animals can endure, conserving water like living machines. In a place where others perish, they thrive. That's Namibia's rule. Adapt or vanish. And then there's Dead Vlei, one of the most surreal places on Earth. Imagine a white clay pan, cracked and hard as bone, surrounded by towering red dunes. In the middle, blackened camel-thorn trees stand frozen in time, their skeletal branches reaching up as if clawing at the sky. These trees died centuries ago, when the river that fed them shifted course. But the desert preserved their remains. They haven't rotted because it's simply too dry. They are ghosts, caught mid-gesture, in a landscape that feels more like a dream than reality. Tourists flock here for photos, but if you stand still long enough, the silence will overwhelm you. No birdsong, no rustle of leaves, just your breath and the whisper of wind over sand. It's eerie, it's humbling, and it forces you to confront just how fragile and how resilient life can be at once. But don't think of these dunes as static monuments. They move. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, dunes migrate under the constant push of wind. They bury trees. They uncover new pans. They reshape the land in cycles older than human memory. Scientists study their patterns like living organisms, because in a way, that's what they are. Breathing, shifting giants of sand. For the local sand people, the desert is more than a spectacle. It's a living archive of survival skills honed over tens of thousands of years. They read the sand like a book, tracking animals, finding water hidden beneath dry riverbeds, knowing which plants carry moisture or medicine. Where most would see only emptiness, they see an encyclopedia of survival. That kind of knowledge, passed down in whispers and stories, is as precious as gold. And yet, in the midst of this ancient desert, modern conservation has taken root. The Namib-Naukluft National Park protects this fragile ecosystem, balancing tourism with preservation. The irony isn't lost here. People travel across the world to see a desert, something they think of as nothingness. But Namibia teaches you that nothing is the wrong word entirely. This land is full of everything if you learn to look with the right eyes. Think about it. Where else do you find a place where silence feels deafening? Where sand burns at 60 degrees Celsius by day but glows cool silver by night? Where the stars above are so sharp, so unpolluted by light, that the Milky Way looks like spilled milk across the sky. Spend one night here, and you'll never see the night sky the same again. Standing at the crest of a dune as the sun drops, shadows stretching like fingers across the sand, you understand why Namibia is called the desert that breathes life. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you listen closely, you realize this is not emptiness at all. It's fullness, measured in silence, in survival, in beauty carved out of impossibility. Etosha, the desert's kingdom of life. Just when you think Namibia is all about sand and silence, the ground shifts, literally. The dunes flatten out, the horizon stretches wider, and in the north of the country, something unexpected appears. Water. Or, more precisely, the memory of water. This is Etosha, one of Africa's greatest wildlife sanctuaries, and it looks nothing like the lush grasslands you might picture when you think safari. Instead, it's a giant salt pan so vast it can be seen from space. Blinding white, shimmering under the sun like a mirage. But here, in this stark setting, life flourishes in jaw-dropping numbers. At first glance, it's almost a paradox. How can a barren salt pan sustain some of the largest animal gatherings on the planet? The answer lies in timing and adaptation. Seasonal rains transform patches of the pan into shallow, glittering lakes. Flamingos descend in tens of thousands, painting the horizon pink. Pelicans follow, wings wide against the endless white. Then, as the waters retreat, what remains are natural springs and waterholes scattered across the edges of the pan. These become lifelines, and every creature in Etosha knows it. Etosha isn't just about numbers, it's about characters. Take the black rhinoceros, one of the rarest animals left on Earth. Here, under the careful protection of Namibia's conservation programs, their populations are holding steady against the odds. At night, these powerful creatures emerge from the scrub, their movements surprisingly quiet for such bulk, their horns sharp as history itself. To see one in the wild is to witness resilience, embodied. Or think of the predators, the lions that patrol the plains, their manes dusted with pale Etosha clay, giving them a ghostly appearance. These are not the grassland kings of the Serengeti. They are desert lions, hardened, leaner, more patient. They can go days without water, surviving on the blood and moisture of their prey, and when they hunt under the full moon, their silhouettes move silently across the salt pan like phantoms. Cheetahs, too, make their mark here, sprinting across the open flats where speed is both an advantage and a gamble. Out in the open, there's no cover. It's raw athleticism versus survival instincts, with every chase visible against the bare horizon. In Etosha, nothing goes to waste. Every victory for one is a lifeline for another. But it's not just the big animals that define this ecosystem. Look down, and you'll notice colonies of sociable weaver birds, tiny architects of the desert. Their nests are massive, sprawling structures that can weigh more than a car, housing hundreds of birds at once. Some even provide shelter for owls and snakes, a living skyscraper of straw in the middle of nowhere. It's a reminder that in Namibia, scale doesn't dictate importance. Every creature, big or small, has carved out its niche in this fragile balance. Now, here's the part that blows most people's minds. Etosha is one of the only national parks in Africa where you can self-drive. That means you're not confined to a guided tour. You can literally take your own car and roll across these plains, stopping at water holes, scanning the horizon, letting the desert dictate your pace. Imagine sitting in your vehicle as a herd of elephants crosses the road in front of you, or watching lions stalk in the twilight, the only barrier between you and them a few meters of open air. It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it feels like being dropped into the middle of Earth's oldest theater. Of course, with that freedom comes responsibility. Namibia has become a global model for conservation, pioneering community-based programs where local villages directly benefit from protecting wildlife. Poaching hasn't vanished, but the tide has shifted. People now see living elephants and rhinos as more valuable than their ivory or horns. That's not just a win for Namibia, it's a blueprint for the world. And while Etosha dazzles with spectacle, it also teaches patience. Sit long enough at one waterhole, and you start to notice rhythms. The same elephant herd returns at the same hour each day. The jackals circle when the sun dips low. The owls appear only when the first stars prick through the darkening sky. It's a choreography, rehearsed over centuries, performed every single day without an audience, except those who make the journey here. So, if the dunes of Sossusvlei show you the raw, sculpted beauty of the desert, Etosha shows you its heart, the pulse of life that refuses to quit, even in the harshest places. In Namibia, survival isn't quiet resignation. It's a performance. And every time the curtain rises on Etosha's endless plains, you realize you're not watching a documentary. You're sitting front row at the greatest show on Earth. Damaraland, where stone holds memory. If Etosha is Namibia's heartbeat, then Damaraland is its memory, etched not in books but in stone, silence, and ritual. This is a region where landscapes feel older than time itself. Towering granite outcrops, dry riverbeds that look abandoned yet flood without warning, and valleys painted in shades of ochre and rust. It is harsh, unforgiving terrain. And yet, people and life have learned to endure here in ways that defy logic. Start with the rocks themselves. Damaraland is home to Twyfelfontein, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, where ancient hunter-gatherers carved more than 2,500 petroglyphs into stone. Giraffes, rhinos, lions, animals that once roamed this very land, etched with surprising precision. These engravings date back thousands of years, but they don't just record animals. They record movement, migration, the very patterns of survival. Standing before them, you feel the weight of continuity. The people who carved these figures faced the same deserts, the same relentless sun, and yet found time to leave messages that still speak today. Now, shift from stone to flesh. This is also the land of the Himba people, semi-nomadic pastoralists, who've become icons of Namibia's cultural heritage. You might have seen photographs of Himba women, their skin and hair coated in a reddish paste made from butterfat and ochre. But what often gets lost in tourist snapshots is the why. That ochre mixture is not just aesthetic. It protects against the sun, wards off insects, and marks identity. It is both shield and signature. When you speak to the Himba, you realize that survival here is not only about adapting to the environment, but about weaving meaning into every adaptation. Daily life is dictated by cattle. Herds provide milk, status, and continuity. Villages are arranged with the kraal, the cattle enclosure, at the center, symbolizing how deeply livestock defines their world. Children grow up learning which plants can sustain goats in a drought, which paths lead to hidden water holes. Knowledge is not written. It is lived, spoken, remembered. And in a land where forgetting could mean death, memory itself becomes a form of wealth. But let's not romanticize survival. It's brutally hard. In Kauko land, further north, droughts can last for years. Families trek miles for water, carrying heavy buckets from wells dug into dry riverbeds. Livestock perish, and with them, security. And yet, communities persist. There's resilience here that feels almost superhuman. And yet it's simply human at its most stripped down. Persistence, adaptation, communal reliance. Here's the paradox. Damaraland feels empty, but it's full of stories. Every rock shelter, every trail, every village carries a narrative of resilience. Even the landscape itself speaks. The Brandberg Mountain, Namibia's highest peak, is sacred to the San people. Within its caves lies the famous White Lady Rock painting, an enigmatic figure surrounded by hunters and dancers. Archaeologists debate its meaning, but what matters is that for millennia, this mountain has been a spiritual compass, a place where people came to connect Earth with the divine. When you drive through Damaraland, it's easy to underestimate it. Distances are vast, villages sparse, and the silence can feel heavy. But stay longer, and you notice details. The way the late afternoon sun turns granite cliffs into fire. The way a Himba elder describes herding routes from memory alone. The way elephant tracks appear like signatures across dry river sand. The desert isn't dead. It's deliberate. It gives nothing freely, but it rewards those who pay attention. For Namibia, Damaraland is not just cultural heritage. It's a survival manual. The petroglyphs remind us of how long humans have been here. The Himba remind us of what it takes to stay. The wildlife reminds us that adaptation is universal, not just human. And together they form a mosaic of endurance that feels almost timeless. So, if Etosha shows the abundance of life, Damaraland shows its endurance. Here, life is not about thriving. It's about persisting, generation after generation. And maybe that's why standing in Damaraland feels different. You don't just observe history. You witness the raw mechanics of survival. It's a place that doesn't flatter you with abundance. It tests you with scarcity. And in that test, you realize the desert doesn't just breathe life. It demands it. Skeleton Coast. where the ocean eats the desert. If there is one place in Namibia that defies reason, it's the Skeleton Coast. Imagine standing on a beach where the Atlantic hurls itself against endless dunes, where waves crash not against cliffs or palm-fringed bays, but against raw desert. It's one of the strangest, most hostile coastlines on Earth, a place so lethal that early sailors nicknamed it the land God made in anger. And yet, it's mesmerizing. The contrast alone feels surreal, an ocean overflowing with life colliding head-on, with a desert defined by absence. No gradual transition, no soft borders, just water meeting sand with nothing in between. But here's the catch. This coastline is far from empty. It's a paradox, lethal and life-giving at the same time. Let's start with its infamous reputation. For centuries, this shore was feared by sailors. The Benguela current pushes ships off course, fog blinds navigation, and treacherous surf makes landing impossible. Many vessels never escaped. Even today, rusting shipwrecks dot the beaches, their skeletal frames half buried in sand. Some lean like crooked monuments, others look freshly shattered, even though they've been there for decades. They're eerie reminders of human fragility against natural forces. It's not hard to see why the coast earned its name. But shift perspective, and the same forces that doomed ships actually sustain one of the richest marine ecosystems on the planet. That Benguela current, cold and relentless, brings nutrient-rich waters up from the deep Atlantic. These nutrients fuel plankton blooms, which in turn feed fish, which attract seals, dolphins, and whales. Namibia's seal colonies, especially at Cape Cross, are some of the largest in the world. Tens of thousands of Cape Fur seals crowd the beaches, barking, diving, clashing for space. The sound alone is overwhelming, a raw symphony of survival. It doesn't stop there. Seabirds wheel overhead, flamingos gather in lagoons, and offshore whales breach as if to remind you that abundance exists just beyond the surf. This is the strange truth of the Skeleton Coast. It looks dead from the shore, but in reality, it pulses with hidden vitality. Now, step inland, and the paradox deepens. Fog is the lifeline here. The same fog that wrecked ships rolls in from the ocean and blankets the dunes, bringing precious moisture to the desert. Beetles climb sandy ridges at dawn, lifting their bodies to collect dew droplets that condense and slide down into their mouths. Plants twist their leaves to trap moisture. Even desert lions and hyenas adapt, learning to hunt seals along the coast. Survival is shaped not by rivers or rain, but by mist. A coastline literally breathing life out of thin air. Then there's Swakopmund, the coastal town where German colonial history meets adrenaline tourism. Walk its streets, and you see Bavarian-style architecture set against desert dunes. Bakeries sell strudel. Street names echo German towns. And yet, the Atlantic is right there, pounding the shore. Today, Swakopmund thrives as a launchpad for desert adventures, sandboarding, quad biking, or flying over the dunes where they spill directly into the sea. It's strange, almost theatrical. A European facade dropped into a Namibian desert town. But it works, and it underscores Namibia's layered identity, part African, part colonial, part global. Further north, the Skeleton Coast becomes more desolate. Roads disappear, settlements vanish, and the desert swallows everything. This is not a place of convenience. It's a place of confrontation. You feel small here. The horizon stretches unbroken. The air smells of salt and rust. and the silence presses against you. It's one of the last true wildernesses on Earth, so inaccessible that much of it remains untouched. But what does the Skeleton Coast mean beyond spectacle? It's a reminder of balance, how fragility and abundance can exist side by side. To sailors, it was a graveyard. To seals, it's a sanctuary. To Namibians, it's both history and identity. It forces you to consider survival from multiple angles: human, animal, and ecological. Driving along this coast feels like stepping into another world. On one side, dunes rise like golden mountains. On the other hand, the Atlantic heaves endlessly. In between, wrecks decay, seals bark, and fog drifts like breath across the sand. It's haunting, it's humbling, and it challenges every assumption you might have about what a desert or a coastline should look like. And that's the truth of Namibia. It thrives on paradox. The Skeleton Coast is not just a boundary between land and sea. It's a collision point where destruction and creation coexist, where every wreck tells a story of loss, and every colony of seals tells a story of abundance, where mist itself becomes water, and survival becomes art. In a way, this coast sums up Namibia itself: unforgiving, unforgettable, and alive in ways you don't expect. The future of Namibia: conservation, energy, and identity. Namibia is often described as ancient, but to stop there would be a mistake. This is not a country frozen in amber, it's a nation negotiating the future in real time. And the choices made here matter far beyond its borders. Start with conservation. Namibia is one of the pioneers of community-based wildlife management. After gaining independence in 1990, it made a bold decision: give local communities control over wildlife in their areas. The result? Conservancies. Imagine rural villages deciding how to balance cattle grazing with elephant migrations, or how to share revenue from safari tourism. It flipped the old colonial model on its head. Instead of outsiders dictating conservation, locals became custodians. The payoff has been enormous. Black rhino populations recovering, elephant ranges expanding, cheetahs finding refuge. In a world where wildlife is shrinking, Namibia shows that coexistence is possible when people are empowered. Now, shift to energy. Namibia has one of the highest solar radiation levels on Earth. Entire regions bathe in sunlight almost every day of the year. That makes it a prime candidate for solar power, and now for green hydrogen. In fact, Namibia is positioning itself to become Africa's hub for renewable hydrogen, a fuel that could decarbonize industries worldwide. Picture the irony. The same desert that looks empty could power parts of the global economy. Sand, sun, and science converging into a resource more valuable than oil. That's Namibia's future flex. But development is never simple. The balance between resource use and environmental protection is delicate. Mining for uranium, diamonds, and rare earths provides vital revenue, but also raises questions about sustainability. Can Namibia build a future that benefits its people without compromising the very landscapes that define it? That's the test, and it's not a hypothetical one. It's unfolding now. Then there's identity. Namibia carries multiple histories: indigenous traditions, German colonial scars, South African occupation, and now 3 decades of independence. You see this mosaic in its languages: Oshiwambo, Herero, Nama, German, Afrikaans, and English, all spoken here. In its food, game meat grilled alongside European pastries. In its music, traditional rhythms layered with Afrobeat and hip-hop. Namibia doesn't flatten these influences. It weaves them together. The result is a culture that's uniquely its own, resilient, adaptive, forward-looking. And perhaps that's the point. Namibia doesn't fit into neat categories. It's a desert nation with life bursting out of sand, a young democracy with ancient traditions, a land where elephants walk across dunes and satellites beam Wi-Fi into remote villages. Its future lies in navigating paradox, growth without losing authenticity, modernization without sacrificing ecology. The world will keep looking to Namibia for diamonds, uranium, and now hydrogen. But if you really want to understand its future, look not at what it exports, but what it protects. Look at the conservancies, at the wildlife corridors, at the decision to let mist-fed beetles and desert lions survive in harmony with human ambition. That's where Namibia's true wealth lies, in proving that life doesn't just adapt to extremes, it thrives because of them. So what do you call a place where deserts bloom, oceans feed, and ancient cultures walk side by side with modern ambition? You call it Namibia, the desert that breathes life. It's a land of contradictions that somehow make sense, where fog gives water, sand fuels energy, and silence holds entire histories. You don't come here to tick off sites. You come to be unsettled, humbled, reshaped. Because Namibia doesn't just show you landscapes. It shows you balance. And once you've stood on its dunes, listening to the Atlantic roar against golden sand, you realize some places don't just survive. They redefine what survival means. What comes to mind when you hear South Africa? Safari, wine, maybe, Table Mountain. But what if I told you it's one of the most extreme countries on Earth? A place where the oldest human fossils were found, and where modern cities rise like glass towers against deserts and oceans. Where 11 languages weave through streets alive with history, music, and markets. Where adventure junkies dive with great whites, and daredevils leap from the world's highest commercial bungee. This isn't the South Africa from travel brochures. And this is the South Africa you've never seen. And once you do, it'll stay with you. Let's start at the heart of extremes, where land, people, and stories collide in ways you'll have to see to believe. Land of extremes, where worlds collide. South Africa's story begins with its land, a country of sharp contrasts, where extremes collide at every turn. Imagine standing at the edge of the Kalahari Desert. The red sand stretches endlessly, dry and unyielding under the sun. Yet just a few hundred kilometers away, rainforests and waterfalls pulse with life. This is a place where nature refuses to be ordinary. Take Table Mountain in Cape Town. Over 260 million years old, its flat summit is often shrouded in a tablecloth of clouds, and from its heights, the Atlantic Ocean stretches to the horizon like liquid steel. Hike its trails, and you'll feel the weight of history. every rock, every fern, every gust of wind a reminder that this land has endured more than most. Below, the city hums, a mixture of colonial architecture and modern glass towers. Now, let's pivot inland to the cradle of humankind, just outside Johannesburg. UNESCO calls it a World Heritage Site for a reason. Some of the oldest hominid fossils ever discovered were found here, dating back over 3 million years. You can almost hear whispers of our ancestors echoing through limestone caves and excavation sites, connecting the distant past with the bustling urban present. Johannesburg itself is a city of extremes, gold rush history, rubbing shoulders with cutting-edge fintech startups, street markets alive with color, and neighborhoods where every corner tells a story. Driving along the Western Cape, you hit Route 62, the longest wine route on Earth, stretching over 850 kilometers. Vineyards spill over valleys like green oceans, mountains rising behind them like silent guardians. But don't let the serenity fool you. Here, adventure waits around every bend. From shark cage diving near Gansbaai to bungee jumping off Bluecrans Bridge, adrenaline junkies find every reason to push the limits. South Africa doesn't do moderation. It does extremes. And then there's wildlife. This is one of the few countries where you can see the Big Five in a single safari. Lions basking in golden light, leopards slinking through brush, elephants thundering across savannas. And if that wasn't enough, penguins waddle along the shores of Boulder's Beach, a reminder that nature loves to surprise. Even the ostrich, Earth's largest bird, can sprint past 70 kilometers per hour. A creature built for extremes, just like the land it calls home. South Africa's extremes aren't just natural, they're cultural too. Eleven official languages create a mosaic of voices, music, and stories. The Rainbow Nation isn't just a nickname, it's a reality, visible in cities, townships, and rural villages alike. And in Cape Town, you can trace history to Dr. Christian Barnard, performing the world's first successful heart transplant in 1967. Proof that this country's extremes touch every field, from biology to architecture to sport. And if you think that's all, just wait. Let me show you South Africa's thriving cities, where urban extremes meet human ingenuity in ways you won't believe. Urban extremes, cities that never sit still. Step into South Africa's cities, and you'll see extremes in motion. Take Johannesburg, often called Joburg or Igolai, the city of gold. Skyscrapers glitter with corporate ambition, while a few streets away, informal markets burst with energy, color, and life. It's a city built on contradictions, wealth and struggle, history and innovation, dust and glass. Walk past Maboneng Precinct, and you'll find street art and rooftop cafes buzzing with tech startups, blending creativity and commerce in a way few cities can match. Pretoria, the executive capital, tells a different story. Boulevards lined with jacaranda trees explode in violet every spring, softening the city's formal government buildings. You can feel authority in the air. The Union buildings, standing like a fortress overlooking the city. But culture thrives here too. Museums, art galleries, and lively markets remind you that politics isn't the only story South Africans live. Then there's Cape Town, perhaps the most extreme city in the country. Nestled between the jagged peaks of Table Mountain and the roaring Atlantic, it's a city of cinematic landscapes. Waterfronts hum with tourists, street performers, and restaurants serving everything from local bobotie to modern fusion cuisine. Yet within a short drive, you can be in the winelands of Stellenbosch or the rugged cliffs of Cape Point, where oceans crash like a symphony against rock. Cape Town doesn't just live on extremes, it celebrates them. Durban brings a completely different vibe. Indian Ocean beaches stretch endlessly, while markets and curry houses showcase the city's Indian influence. Surfing, paragliding, and kite surfing aren't just hobbies here, they're a lifestyle. And when the sun sets, the city pulses with music and nightlife that feel almost limitless. Even the smaller towns are extremes in miniature. Oudtshoorn, home of the ostrich farms, offers the Kango caves nearby, limestone formations older than the pyramids of Egypt, draped in stalactites and stalagmites that seem to reach for eternity. Here, history, nature, and culture collide in ways that feel larger than life, even in a town of just tens of thousands. South Africa's urban extremes aren't just about landscapes. They're about people. In every city, township, and village, you'll find stories of innovation, resilience, and identity. 11 official languages create a rhythm you can hear in street music, in markets, in casual conversations. You'll catch Xhosa clicks in the marketplace, Afrikaans in a coffee shop, English in skyscrapers, and Zulu in the suburbs, all flowing together in an energetic, sometimes chaotic, but always fascinating harmony. And if you think city life is only fast and modern, think again. Cape Town's District 6 whispers stories of apartheid-era displacement. Johannesburg's gold mines echo the triumphs and struggles of miners. Each city holds layers of extremes, waiting to be explored, understood, and experienced. Now, let's leave the cities behind and head into South Africa's wild heart, where deserts, savannas, and oceans converge to create landscapes you'll barely believe exist. Wild extremes, nature that refuses to play small. Step outside the cities, and South Africa's landscapes explode with extremes. The country is a living showcase of contrasts. Deserts that burn under the sun, lush valleys that shimmer after rainfall, and oceans that crash against cliffs with relentless force. Start in Kruger National Park, one of Africa's largest game reserves. Here, you can witness the Big Five roaming freely, lions lounging in golden grass, elephants thundering across plains, rhinos grazing silently, buffaloes forming powerful herds, and leopards slipping through shadows like ghosts. Every safari is different, every encounter unpredictable. Then there's the garden route along the southern coast. In less than a day, you can move from misty mountains to endless beaches, to dense forests dripping with ferns. Storms roll in from the Indian Ocean, painting the skies in shades of gray and violet, while whales breach offshore in a breathtaking spectacle. Adventure isn't optional here. It's built into the landscape. Shark cage diving in Gansbaai is a must for adrenaline junkies, And if you prefer land, Blukran's Bridge offers the highest commercial bungee jump in the world. Only in South Africa can fear and beauty coexist in such close proximity. Heading west, the Kango Caves near Oudtshoorn plunge deep underground. Limestone formations, some over 20 million years old, twist and soar like frozen sculptures. Walking through these narrow passageways, you feel both ancient and alive. A reminder that South Africa's extremes aren't just on the surface, they're carved into the earth itself. Just outside, the ostriches of the Karoo stretch their long necks, running faster than you'd imagine possible. The largest birds on Earth racing across flat plains as if mocking gravity. And let's not forget, the African penguins at Boulders Beach near Cape Town. Yes, penguins. In Africa, tiny, tuxedoed birds waddling along sun-drenched sands, completely at home next to surfers and sunbathers. It's the kind of surreal twist that makes South Africa unforgettable, where extremes collide and nature refuses to follow the rules. Even the skies tell a story. Sunsets here are epic. The desert glows like molten copper, oceans sparkle with fiery streaks, and mountains turn violet as the day folds into night. Birdsong fills the air, from tiny sunbirds to the booming calls of ostriches, creating a symphony that is uniquely South African. But South Africa's extremes aren't only about spectacle. They're about survival. The flora and fauna adapt in ways that seem almost impossible. Succulents storing water for months, predators coordinating with silent precision, and humans finding harmony with the land, from the ancient sand people to modern conservationists. Now, we'll leave the wild behind and dive into the cultural extremes, where people, history, and language create a mosaic as breathtaking and complex as the landscapes themselves. Cultural extremes, the Rainbow Nation in motion. Step into the streets, markets, and townships, and you quickly realize South Africa's extremes aren't just natural, they're human. 11 official languages ripple through daily life: Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, English, and 7 others, each carrying its own rhythm, tone, and story. Walk through Cape Town's neighborhoods, and you'll hear a symphony of voices, some blending effortlessly, some clashing, all painting the vibrant picture of the Rainbow Nation. History leaves its mark everywhere. In Cape Town, District 6 whispers tales of forced removals during apartheid. Johannesburg's gold mines echo, stories of miners who built the city with sweat and sacrifice. Museums and monuments across the country preserve these extremes of triumph and tragedy, reminding you that this is a nation constantly reshaping itself. You can feel the tension between past and present, between pain and resilience, in every corner. And yet, the extremes aren't only historical. Modern South Africa pulses with creativity. Street art explodes on city walls. Music, from jazz to kwaito to amapiano, fills every space, and festivals draw communities together in ways that feel both spontaneous and deliberate. Markets like Johannesburg's Neighbor Goods Market or Durban's Victoria Street buzz with scents, colors, and flavors from across the country. Spicy curries, freshly baked breads, and fruits you've never seen before. Every step, every interaction is a lesson in contrast. Old traditions meeting modern innovation, quiet resilience beside loud celebration. Cape Town tells another story. It's the city where Dr. Christian Barnard performed the world's first successful human heart transplant in 1967, a medical feat that made history. Today, the city balances science, tourism, and culture, with beaches, vineyards, and world-class restaurants coexisting beside historic sites and bustling townships. It's a city of paradoxes, extremes that challenge your expectations at every turn. Then there's sport. Rugby, cricket, and soccer aren't just games here. They're national passions. Rugby stadiums roar with energy, reflecting both fierce competition and collective pride. South Africa has won the Rugby World Cup 3 times, 1995, 2007, and 2019, each victory reinforcing a shared identity in a nation of diversity. Sports here are more than entertainment. They're a bridge between communities, a microcosm of South Africa's extremes in one space. Even daily life is layered with extremes, from urban nightlife that stretches until dawn to quiet rural villages where time seems frozen. The pace of life is unpredictable. One moment, you're sipping wine along Route 62. The next, you're learning traditional dance moves from local elders. Each experience feels like a collision of worlds, a reminder that South Africa thrives on contradictions. It's time to move to the extreme adventures and adrenaline that define this land. From the highest bungee jumps to the wildest safaris, where danger and beauty exist side by side. Adrenaline extremes, where fear meets wonder. South Africa isn't just a feast for the eyes. It's a playground for the fearless. If you crave adventure, this country raises the bar higher than almost anywhere else. Take Blukran's Bridge, tucked into the Tsitsikamma Mountains. At 216 meters, it's the highest commercial bungee jump in the world. Standing on that edge, wind in your face, the forest floor far below, it's impossible not to feel alive. And if you survive the jump, you'll probably want to do it again. Then there's the ocean. The waters off Gansbaai are famous for one thing: great white sharks. Cage diving here isn't a gimmick, it's an adrenaline test. You're in a metal cage, heart pounding, as one of the ocean's top predators glides past, jaws open. There's fear, awe, and an odd sense of intimacy with a creature that dominates its world. South Africa doesn't just offer adventure, it demands respect. For those who prefer land-based thrills, the Drakensberg Mountains call. Hiking trails wind through jagged peaks, waterfalls, and cliffs that drop into misty valleys. You can climb steep rock faces, traverse narrow ridges, or follow ancient sand rock art, evidence that humans have challenged these extremes for millennia. Adventure here isn't optional. It's written into the landscape. Even wildlife encounters are extreme. Safari drives through Kruger or Addo Elephant Park aren't like zoos. You're shoulder to shoulder with predators and giants. Elephants knocking down trees, lions hunting silently, and cheetahs sprinting faster than any car can manage. Every sighting carries tension, unpredictability, and awe. South Africa's wildlife doesn't just exist. It commands your attention. And adventure doesn't stop at natural extremes. Route 62, the world's longest wine route, doubles as a road trip playground. vineyards, mountains, and deserts stretch for over 850 kilometers. Stop in small towns to sip award-winning wines, taste local cheeses, or meet farmers whose families have lived here for generations. Even slow adventures carry the thrill of discovery. Extreme sports, natural beauty, and raw adrenaline are part of the country's DNA, but so is balance. After a day of bungee jumps or shark dives, you can unwind in Cape Town, listening to the waves, or sip a glass of pinotage while watching a sunset over the winelands. South Africa teaches you extremes are better experienced side by side. Fear and beauty, danger and peace, the wild and the civilized. And if you think this is the end, there's still one more extreme to explore. A final reflection on why South Africa is the most extreme country on Earth, where nature, culture, and adventure collide in ways that challenge every sense and expectation. The ultimate extreme. Why South Africa defies expectations. After deserts, cities, mountains, and oceans, you start to understand why South Africa is called the most extreme country on Earth. It's not just the scenery, or the wildlife, or the adrenaline sports. It's the way extremes coexist, collide, and complement each other. One moment, you're watching penguins waddle on sunlit beaches. The next, lions stalk the savanna nearby. One day, you're sipping fine wine on Route 62. The next, you're plummeting off the world's highest bungee jump. It's a country that doesn't know the meaning of moderation. Look closer, and you see extremes in people too. 11 languages, dozens of cultures, centuries of history. Yet there's a resilience, a creativity, a rhythm that ties it all together. From the gold mines of Johannesburg to the vibrant streets of Durban, from Cape Town's District 6 to rural villages tucked into mountains, South Africans navigate contradictions with grace, humor, and an unstoppable energy. Every neighborhood, every township, every city has a story that pushes boundaries, blending past and future, tradition and innovation. Even the natural world refuses to settle. Table Mountain's flat summit, covered in a shifting tablecloth of clouds, overlooks a city alive with contrasts. The Kango Caves hold 20-million-year-old limestone formations, while nearby ostriches sprint across open plains like living reminders that size, speed, and survival all demand attention. Whales breach offshore, great whites patrol the waters, and elephants roam freely in vast parks. Extremes exist not as anomalies, but as the baseline of life here. And adventure, South Africa's adrenaline factor, is everywhere. Shark cage diving, bungee jumping, surfing, hiking, safaris. These aren't rare experiences. They're woven into the fabric of the country. The thrill of fear, the awe of beauty, and the joy of discovery are constant companions. South Africa doesn't just offer stories. It delivers experiences that you feel in your bones. But perhaps the most extreme thing about this country is perspective. You start to realize that extremes aren't just about spectacle. They're about learning, understanding, and respecting differences. Whether it's culture, language, wildlife, or geography, every extreme teaches something. Patience, courage, curiosity, and humility become your guides, and the country becomes more than a place. It becomes an education in contrasts. South Africa doesn't ask you to adapt. It dares you to notice, participate, and be amazed. It's a nation of contradictions, challenges, and wonders that leave no sense untouched. And by the time you leave, you realize the truth. No single photo, video, or story can capture it fully. You have to live it, step into it, and let it change the way you see extremes. South Africa is more than a country. It's a collision of worlds, a symphony of contrasts, and a reminder that life, when lived at its edges, is breathtaking. And once you experience it, you'll never see extremes or the world the same way again. So, what is South Africa really? It's not just a country you visit. It's a place that stays with you, a land that balances extremes, the wild and the civilized, the ancient and the modern, the serene and the untamed. You come chasing lions, mountains, and oceans. But what you remember are the people. The winemaker in Stellenbosch, tending vineyards passed down for generations. The Zulu dancer, moving with a rhythm older than history itself. The Cape Town artist, painting penguins on beaches and skyscrapers in the same frame. Because in South Africa, progress doesn't erase the past. It stands beside it. Here, time doesn't flow in a straight line. It loops from 3-million-year-old hominid fossils in the cradle of humankind to the neon lights of Johannesburg's tech hubs, from the roar of an elephant on safari to the quiet hum of a fisherman on the wild coast. And as you leave, you realize South Africa isn't just a country of extremes. The landscapes, the wildlife, and the adventures were only the first chapter. The real story is life itself, vivid, unexpected, unapologetic, because this is a country that refuses to be simplified. It's not Table Mountain, not the deserts, not the wine routes, not the beaches. It's the space between them, where fear meets beauty, where past meets future, where humans meet the wild. That's South Africa. Not a destination, a revelation. What if the same coast that once shipped millions into slavery is now leading a cultural revolution? This is Ghana, where the sound of drums never stopped, and the fight for identity never faded. You've heard of the Gold Coast, but what you haven't heard is the real story. From the castles of Elmina to the streets of Accra, every corner tells a story of resistance, rhythm, and rebirth. But Ghana's past isn't just preserved, it's powering its future. The first sub-Saharan colony to win independence in 1957, and today a fast-growing hub for art, tech, and trade. Ancient kingdoms still stand, and a new generation is redefining what African modernity looks like. Stay with us, because this journey will change how you see Africa. The Coast of Memory. To understand how Ghana got here, we have to start on the edge of the sea, at a fortress built for gold, and for something far darker. It all begins where the ocean meets the past. Ghana's southern edge stretches for over 500 kilometers along the Gulf of Guinea, a coastline once glittering with gold, ivory, and promise. But beneath that shimmer lies one of humanity's darkest chapters. In the 15th century, Portuguese explorers anchored off the shores of Elmina. They built the Elmina Castle in 1482, the first European structure in sub-Saharan Africa. Whitewashed walls, arched courtyards, and a view of endless blue. A postcard of paradise, hiding a portal to pain. The dungeons below still smell of iron and damp stone. Chains once clinked where now only tourists whisper. Tens of thousands of men and women were held here, traded for gold, guns, and cloth. Their cries vanished into the surf, but the sea remembers. And yet, even here, Ghana turned tragedy into testimony.
This is a dead cell. No food, no water until you die. There wasn't any light.
Today, the castles of Elmina, Cape Coast, and Fort Amsterdam are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. They stand not as ruins, but as classrooms of the soul. Every guide who walks you through these corridors speaks with reverence, not bitterness. Because Ghanaians know that remembering is a form of resistance. Outside the fortress walls, life bursts back into color. Fishing boats painted red, yellow, and green push out from the sand. Children chase waves with laughter that fills the wind. Markets hum with the scent of smoked tilapia, palm oil, and ripe mango. This is Ghana's alchemy, turning grief into grace. Further west lies Takoradi, Ghana's oil city, where offshore rigs gleam on the horizon. It's a symbol of how the same coastline once drained by exploitation now fuels new prosperity. Cargo ships line the port, carrying cocoa, bauxite, and timber, the raw veins of Ghana's modern economy. But beyond industry lies heritage that refuses to fade. In Ankobra and Busue, local fishermen still sing ancient Fante songs as they pull their nets. Each verse is part prayer, part navigation, part history lesson. And when the sun sets, the horizon burns gold, as if the land is reclaiming its name. From coast to capital, Ghana's heartbeat grows louder. The journey inland begins on the road to Accra, a city where history and ambition collide. Glass towers rise beside colonial bungalows. Street vendors weave between taxis, and the scent of roasted plantain mixes with sea salt. Accra isn't polished. It's alive. Every corner vibrates with rhythm, trade, and talk. And at its heart stands a monument not of conquest, but of liberation. Black Star Square. That's where we're headed next. To the square that turned a colony into a nation, and a people into a symbol of African pride. The city of independence. Accra isn't a city you observe. It's one you feel. From sunrise to sundown, it vibrates with energy. The chatter of trotro drivers, the crackle of frying oil, the bass lines of Afrobeats leaking from passing cars. It's loud, fast, unapologetic, and deeply symbolic. Because this is where Ghana's freedom first found its voice. In 1957, when Kwame Nkrumah declared independence from British rule, he did it right here, at Black Star Square, under a sky filled with fireworks and hope. The square still stands today, vast and open, framed by the Independence Arch and the Black Star Gate. It's not just a landmark. It's a living reminder that Ghana was the first sub-Saharan African nation to break free from colonial rule. Every year on March 6th, crowds fill this square, waving flags, singing anthems, marching with pride. The air smells of roasted maize and kerosene from parade torches. Children wear miniature uniforms, their faces painted red, gold, and green. For them, independence isn't a story, it's an inheritance. But Accra doesn't live in the past. It builds on it. Drive a few minutes north, and you're in Osu, a neighborhood that feels like a microcosm of modern Ghana. Cafes buzz with artists and entrepreneurs. Murals bloom across crumbling walls. In one corner, the scent of jollof rice drifts from a street stall. In another, tech startups test apps built for the next generation of African users. East Legon hums with that same spirit. Sleek offices, fashion boutiques, and rooftop lounges that could rival any global city. Yet, amid the new skyline, you'll still find street vendors balancing trays of peanuts and sachets of water on their heads. It's a city of contrasts, not contradictions. Because in Accra, tradition isn't erased by progress. It's layered into it. And the deeper you look, the more stories you find beneath the surface. Visit Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, where the marble mausoleum houses the man who dreamed of a united Africa. The fountains whisper beside bronze statues of Nkrumah, raising his hand to the future. He once said, "We face neither east nor west. We face forward." And Ghana still does. From Accra's beaches, Labadi, Kokrabite, Bojo, to its bustling markets like Makola and Kaneshi, the rhythm of life here feels unstoppable. You hear the history, the hustle, the humor, all at once. Accra teaches a simple truth. Freedom is not a finished line. It's something you build, brick by brick, beat by beat. And that rhythm doesn't stop at the capital's edge. Beyond the city, Ghana opens into ancient lands, to royal stools and sacred forests, to kings crowned not by power, but by lineage and duty. Our next stop, Kumasi, the heart of the Ashanti Kingdom, where gold still glitters and pride runs deep. The Ashanti legacy. If Accra is Ghana's heartbeat, then Kumasi is its soul. Here, every drumbeat echoes centuries of power, artistry, and resilience. This is the land of kings, the Ashanti Kingdom, one of the most enduring monarchies in Africa. Founded in the late 1600s, the Ashanti Empire grew under Osei Tutu and his priest Okomfo Anokye, who, legend says, called down a golden stool from the heavens. That stool, the Sika Dwa Kofi, didn't seat a king. It held the spirit of the nation itself. To this day, no one sits on it. It rests under guard in Kumasi, shining as the ultimate symbol of unity and pride. Walk through Manhaya Palace, and you'll feel history watching you. The current king, Otumfuo Osei Tutu II, still rules, not through conquest, but through culture. Ceremonies unfold with a choreography unchanged for centuries. Talking drums speak royal messages. Gold-laced umbrellas shimmer in the sun. Chiefs arrive in kente, woven so fine it glows. Gold isn't just a metal here, it's meaning. Every Ashanti ornament tells a story. You'll see weights shaped like crocodiles and eagles, used once to measure gold dust in the markets. Artisans in Antonso still craft adinkra symbols, stamped cloths bearing proverbs about life, wisdom, and destiny. Each symbol is a philosophy in miniature. Gaianyame, except for God. Sankofa, return and get it. A reminder that looking back is sometimes the only way forward. The air in Kumasi hums with this heritage. Markets like Kajetia, one of West Africa's largest, sprawl like a living maze. Over 11,000 stalls sell everything from kente threads to mobile phones. The scent shifts every few steps. Smoked fish, shea butter, hot charcoal. It's chaos, but it's choreography. Everyone knows where they belong in the dance. But Kumasi isn't trapped in tradition. It thrives on reinvention. Local designers are weaving ancient motifs into streetwear. Artists like Kabi Bensi Enchil and Kwabena Danso reimagine royal symbols through modern eyes. It's a fusion of past and present that defines Ghana's creative identity. And yet, amid the buzz of progress, there's reverence. In the royal courtyard, drums still call out news before dawn. Each beat carries memory of wars fought, treaties made, and generations born. The Ashanti say, the forest may burn, but the roots still live. That's Kumasi, rooted in gold, growing through time. But Ghana's story doesn't end with kings and crowns. Further north lies another kind of majesty, one shaped not by gold, but by nature. Savanna plains, ancient mosques, and elephants that walk through mist. The land of mole, larabanga, and legends written in dust. That's where we go next, into northern Ghana, where silence speaks and the wild still rules. The wild and the sacred. Leave behind the crowded streets of Kumasi, and the air begins to change. The humidity thins. The roads stretch wide. And soon, Ghana opens into something vast, the savanna of the north. Here, the landscape tells stories older than kingdoms. Red earth, thorn trees, and wide skies stretch endlessly toward the horizon. This is northern Ghana, raw, quiet, powerful. It's a region that holds both spiritual weight and ecological wonder. Our first stop is Larabanga, often called the Mecca of West Africa. Its mud and stick mosque, built in the 1400s, is Ghana's oldest Islamic structure. Whitewashed walls curve like waves, and the wooden stakes jutting from its sides serve as both decoration and scaffolding. When the call to prayer rises, it blends with birdsong and the rustle of the wind, faith, nature, and time in perfect harmony. But the north holds another kind of temple, one carved by nature itself. Just beyond Larabanga lies Mole National Park, Ghana's largest wildlife reserve. Over 4,800 square kilometers of grassland, rivers, and wilderness. It's home to elephants, antelopes, baboons, and leopards, all moving freely across the land. If you're lucky, you'll spot a herd of elephants bathing in a pond at dawn, the water glowing gold under the first light. There are no fences here, just coexistence. The guides, often locals from surrounding villages, read the land like a book. They point out prints in the dust, the direction of wind, the call of a distant hornbill. Their knowledge isn't from textbooks. It's inherited, lived, sung. And north of Mole, another story rises, one built from mud and spirit. In the Upper East region, the villages of Sirigu and Tongo showcase a different Ghana, where art is architecture. The houses are painted in red, white, and black geometric designs, passed down through generations of women artists. Each wall is a canvas of family symbols, a visual diary of births, harvests, and prayers. In Tongo Hills, the rocks form natural shrines, believed to house ancestral spirits. Every sound, from wind to drum, is treated as sacred communication. This is where Ghana feels ancient and alive at once. Evening falls, and the northern horizon burns with amber light. Children run through fields chasing shadows. Women return from the wells with silver bowls balanced on their heads. And somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat begins, faint, steady, familiar. It's the same rhythm heard in Accra, in Kumasi, on the coast. Because no matter how far you travel in Ghana, that pulse never changes. It's the rhythm of resilience, echoing from forest to savanna, from past to future. But now, the story turns homeward, to the coast once more, where Ghana's new generation is building something the world can't ignore, a creative and cultural renaissance rising from the heart of West Africa. The new gold, Ghana's creative renaissance. Return to the coast, and you'll hear a different rhythm now, not from drums or waves, but from speakers, studios, and street corners. This is the new Gold Coast, where creativity has become the country's greatest export. Because Ghana's real treasure today isn't mined, it's made. In Accra's Jamestown, graffiti spills across colonial walls, bright and defiant. Artists like Mo Awudu and Bright Aquer turn politics into murals, using color as protest. You'll find sculptors working beside fishermen, dancers rehearsing next to food stalls. Here, art doesn't live in galleries. It lives in the streets. Walk a few blocks and you'll hear another kind of energy. Music. Afro beats, high life, hip life. Ghana's soundscape is a fusion of tradition and innovation. Names like Sarkodie, Stoneboy, and Amarai carry Ghana's voice to the world, blending Twi lyrics with global beats. At night, rooftop bars light up the skyline, laughter, rhythm, and ocean breeze all mixing into one pulse. But this wave of creativity isn't just entertainment. It's identity reborn. Across the city, young designers are redefining what Made in Ghana means. At Nubuka Foundation and Ano Gallery, exhibitions showcase art that challenges the old narrative, not Africa as poverty, but Africa as power, imagination, and design. Fashion houses like Christy Brown and Studio 189 turn kente and batik into international statements of pride. Their fabrics tell stories of family, faith, and fierce individuality. Even technology follows the same current. In East Legon, Tema, and Kumasi Hive, startups are using digital tools to connect farmers, preserve languages, and archive oral histories. What began as a gold rush has evolved into a mind rush. And through it all, Ghana still knows how to celebrate. Every December, the world comes to Accra for Deti December, a festival season that's become Africa's version of Carnival meets Coachella. From Afrochella to street parades in Osu, the air fills with sound, light, and joy. It's more than tourism, it's a homecoming. A reconnection of the diaspora to their roots, to the warmth that never left. Because that's the essence of Ghana, hospitality. Whether you're from across the border or across the ocean, someone will greet you with a smile and the word Akwaba. Welcome. It's not just a phrase, it's a philosophy. And as Ghana looks toward its next chapter, the promise is clear. The same coast that once shipped gold and sorrow now exports creativity, culture, and confidence. Its people are turning pain into pride, memory into movement, and history into hope. But before we close this journey, there's one more truth to uncover. The thread that ties it all together, the spirit that endures through every wave and every generation. That's where we end, in Ghana's heartbeat itself. The heartbeat of Ghana. If you strip away the gold, the monuments, the markets, what's left? People. That's Ghana's greatest monument. Because every smile, every rhythm, every welcome is its own story of survival and grace. Travel through any Ghanaian village and you'll see it. The daily choreography of life, unfolding with quiet dignity. Children in bright uniforms walking dusty roads to school. Women pounding fufu in rhythm, laughter cutting through the afternoon heat. Old men sitting under neem trees, debating politics, sipping palm wine. Each gesture carries memory, a reminder that progress here was built not just through independence, but through interdependence. Ghanaians call it Ubuntu in spirit, though the word is Southern African. I am because we are. It's the thread that holds this nation together, and you can feel it strongest where community and faith meet. In Cape Coast, Sunday mornings start with choirs that spill into the streets. In Tamale, the muezzin's call drifts over the roofs as dawn breaks. In the Volta region, the drums begin before sunrise, echoing across the hills. Every sound is a prayer. Every gathering, a testament to unity in diversity. The nation has over 70 ethnic groups and over 80 languages, yet somehow it moves as one, through music, respect, and a shared sense of pride. And that pride shows not just in words, but in how Ghanaians live. Education here is sacred. The University of Ghana, founded in 1948, stands as a beacon for West African scholarship. Villages pool resources to send their brightest students to Accra. Innovation programs like One District, One Factory, and Free SHS are reshaping the idea of opportunity. Even abroad, the Ghanaian diaspora remains deeply connected. Whether it's London, Toronto, or New York, you'll find communities wearing kente, hosting Independence Day dinners, and still sending remittances back home, nearly $4.5 billion annually. That flow of care keeps the national heartbeat steady, no matter how far it travels. But perhaps Ghana's real miracle is emotional, not economic. Despite the hardships, inflation, droughts, global shifts, there's a calm defiance here, a refusal to lose optimism. Because Ghanaians know something the world often forgets. Calling hope is a resource too. Evening falls again on the coast. Children chase footballs through the sand. The ocean hums beneath the same sun that watched empires rise and fall. Somewhere, a fisherman hums an old Fante song, half prayer, half promise. The cycle continues. The coast endures. The gold still shines, just in a different form. And that brings us full circle, back to the beginning, back to the name that never stopped meaning more than wealth. Because Ghana's story isn't about what was taken, it's about what could never be taken away. So, where does all this leave Ghana? It's a country that refuses to be simplified. Neither a postcard paradise nor a struggling frontier. It's both. A place that's still rebuilding, still dreaming, and still teaching the world what it means to rise again. From the cocoa fields to the gold mines, from the surf towns to the tech hubs of Accra, Ghana is rewriting its own story, not as the Gold Coast of the past, but as a nation of hope, creativity, and quiet power. The rhythms of the drum, the warmth of a smile, the courage of independence, they all beat in time here. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it. A country that knows exactly where it came from and isn't afraid of where it's going next. Because this isn't just a place of history, it's a place of becoming. This is Ghana, the Gold Coast of history and hope. They call it Africa's forgotten coastline. But only because the world never looked close enough.
I love you.
Just beyond the Red Sea's edge, Eritrea hides over 200 untouched islands. Beneath turquoise waves, coral cities. Still alive, still breathing. It is a capital that looks more like Rome in the 1930s than East Africa.
Cinema Roma.
This is where time bends. Ancient empires carved in stone. Colonial trains still rattling through the mountains. Fishermen navigating by stars, just like they did in the days of the pharaohs. This isn't your typical African adventure. This is Eritrea, enigmatic, elegant, and endlessly unexplored. Stay to the end, because we're going beyond the mainland, to a forgotten island that even Google Maps barely understands.
Let's go.
The coastline of secrets, Eritrea's hidden pearl. If you trace your finger along Africa's Horn, you'll find a narrow stretch where desert dunes meet the Red Sea. That's Eritrea. And what most people miss is that this coastline isn't just long, it's extraordinary. Over 2,200 kilometers of raw, uncommercialized beauty stretch from sandy coves to rocky cliffs. There are no resort chains, no mega hotels, no beach selfies crowding the horizon. Just the land, the water, and a history that hums quietly beneath your feet. Now, let's talk about the part nobody tells you about. the Dahlak Archipelago. Imagine more than 200 islands, scattered like pearls across the Red Sea, most completely uninhabited. You won't find tour buses or souvenir stalls here. The waters are so impossibly clear that they make the Maldives look pixelated. It's a diver's dream and a historian's playground. Underneath, coral gardens bloom like neon cathedrals, while centuries-old shipwrecks, from Ottoman galleys to Italian cargo ships and British vessels, lie quietly in the deep, now home to lionfish, parrotfish, and countless other marine residents. Every dive is a layered story of history and nature entwined. What makes this coastline even more fascinating is its strategic importance through time. The Red Sea wasn't just water, it was the ancient superhighway of global trade. Spices from India, gold from Nubia, frankincense from Yemen, all passed through these channels. Eritrea was the gatekeeper, the meeting point, the first stop for merchants from across continents. Imagine thousands of years ago, bustling ports, camel caravans unloading goods, sailors negotiating deals in languages you've never heard. And then there's Massawa, Eritrea's hauntingly beautiful port city. Step into its streets, and you'll immediately feel the nickname Pearl of the Red Sea isn't exaggeration. It's poetry. Coral stone buildings shimmer in the sun, Ottoman arches mingle with Italian balconies, and Egyptian gates stand as silent witnesses to centuries. You can almost see the footprints of traders, soldiers, and settlers who walked these alleys before you. The city is simultaneously vibrant and suspended in time. Massawa isn't noisy, crowded, or desperate for attention. It has a quiet, commanding presence. Walk along the old railway tracks that once carried goods from the highlands to the coast, and you'll feel the weight of history pressing lightly on your shoulders. Ships from Arabia, Persia, and beyond would dock here, turning the city into a crossroads of civilizations. Today, it waits patiently, like a monarch in exile, unhurried but unmistakably regal.
Welcome to Massawa.
And here's something that often surprises visitors. The name Eritrea itself comes from the Greek Erythra thalassa, meaning Red Sea. Before the modern nation existed, locals called this land Madre Bahri, the land of the sea. Perfect, right? A place defined by its connection to water, trade, and life itself. But don't let the serene beaches and coral reefs fool you. This coastline has weathered storms, both natural and human. Empires rose and fell. The Ottomans fortified the ports. The Italians built railways and colonial districts. The British left their mark and moved on. Yet the local communities endured, fishing, diving, trading, rebuilding, and preserving the soul of the land. Here's the irony. While other coastlines in the world were turned into resorts, marinas, and commercial playgrounds, Eritrea's remained raw and unspoiled. Isolation, politics, and perhaps sheer luck kept it that way. Today, that isolation is its treasure. Reefs thrive, sands remain untouched, and sunsets bleed across the horizon with no filters or crowds, just pure, unadulterated beauty. Stay with me, because next we're heading inland, to a city that defies every stereotype of Africa. A city built for espresso, cinema, and Fiat cars. A city UNESCO calls a modernist masterpiece. That city is Asmara, Africa's little Rome. And once you see it, you'll understand why Eritrea isn't just forgotten, it's misunderstood. Asmara, the city that froze in time. Step off the plane in Asmara and you'll swear you've landed somewhere in southern Europe instead of East Africa. The air is cooler here, crisp and dry thanks to its 2,300-meter altitude. And the city itself feels like a postcard from the 1930s. Wide boulevards, palm-lined streets, cafes with marble counters serving perfect macchiatos under faded neon signs. Even the shadows here seem cinematic. Welcome to Africa's Little Rome.
Macchiato.
Asmara isn't pretending to be Italian. It was Italian. For nearly 50 years, Eritrea was Italy's prized colony, and Asmara was where they poured all their architectural ambition. Architects and engineers came from Rome and Milan to experiment with geometry, symmetry, and modernist flair, transforming the city into an open-air gallery of futurism and Art Deco. The result? A city that looks like a film set, except it's real, lived in, and still perfectly preserved. It's like time paused just before the Second World War and never hit play again. Walk down Harnett Avenue, and you'll see the legendary Fiat Tagliero building, a futuristic fuel station designed like an airplane mid-takeoff. When it was built in 1938, locals thought it couldn't possibly stand without support pillars. The architect, legend has it, pulled a gun on anyone who tried to add them. And he was right. It's still standing, wings and all, more than 80 years later. It's not just a building. It's a symbol of boldness that defied logic and gravity.
Fiat Tagliero.
Then there's the Cinema Impero, an Art Deco masterpiece with a facade that could easily belong in Miami Beach. Inside, it still screens films on weekends, the same vintage projector humming softly since Mussolini's time. Around the corner, old barber shops still use decades-old mirrors. Shoeshine boys polish boots beside pastel walls, and Vespas buzz past balconies draped in bougainvillea. Everything looks like it's been frozen in the golden glow of a sepia photograph, but it's all very much alive. You know what's fascinating? UNESCO didn't preserve Asmara just because it's beautiful. They preserved it because it's a time capsule. The city was never modernized in the global rush for high rises and glass towers. Eritrea's long years of isolation unintentionally protected its heritage. What the world might call neglect became Asmara's greatest preservation strategy. And the vibe here, there's nothing quite like it. Slow, stylish, effortlessly meticulous. You'll see locals in pressed shirts and tailored jackets, sitting outside cafes with the same calm poise you'd find in 1950s Milan.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.
Eritreans have this quiet pride in presentation. It's not vanity, it's identity. The espresso culture, the way people linger over small talk, the elegance and simplicity, all remnants of Italy's influence, yet now uniquely Eritrean. One of the most charming relics from that era is the Asmara-Massawa Railway. Built by the Italians in the early 1900s, it snakes down from the cool highlands to the hot coastal plains through tunnels, viaducts, and breathtaking escarpments. But here's where it gets wild. When the engines broke down, they used camels to pull the train cars. Yes, camels on a railway, hauling colonial cargo down to the Red Sea. It sounds like folklore, but it's documented history, an absurdly poetic example of Eritrea's ingenuity. Today, a few restored steam locomotives still chug along the old track, and if you're lucky enough to ride one, it feels like traveling through a living museum. But Asmara isn't just architecture and nostalgia, its resilience is carved into concrete. This city survived wars, sanctions, and decades of isolation, yet it never lost its dignity. The streets are spotless, the gardens tended, the facades freshly painted. People care, not because someone's watching, but because beauty here is communal pride. There's an unspoken understanding. We'll keep it beautiful anyway. And maybe that's Asmara's secret charm. It's not performing for tourists. It's not chasing the future. It's simply existing, quietly confident, perfectly content to be itself. But beyond Asmara's chic calm lies a deeper story, one that predates Rome, Islam, and even written history.
Welcome to Eritrea!
Deep in Eritrea's highlands lie the ruins of Cohato, Matera, and the echoes of the Aksumite Empire, ancient civilizations that ruled trade routes long before modern borders existed. So, let's leave the espresso cups behind for a while. Next, we're heading back, way back, to where ancient Africa met the world, to the forgotten empires that built Eritrea's foundations. Ancient echoes, the lost empires of Eritrea. Before modern borders and colonial blueprints, Eritrea was the beating heart of an empire. Not a small one of Africa's first great civilizations, the Kingdom of Aksum. Long before the Romans built aqueducts, Aksumite ships were sailing across the Red Sea, trading ivory, gold, and incense from ports along this very coastline. Some historians call it Africa's forgotten superpower. And part of that legacy still lies buried beneath Eritrea's soil, waiting quietly in the highlands and deserts for those who listen closely enough. Our first stop, Cohato. Picture this, an ancient city perched high above a canyon, the wind howling through stone pillars that once framed temples and tombs. The silence here feels sacred, like the air itself remembers. Some of these ruins are over 2,000 years old. Archaeologists say it was once a major stop on the caravan routes between the Nile Valley and the Arabian Peninsula. You can still trace the faint lines of those roads carved directly into the rock, like veins of history running across the plateau. It's not hard to imagine the sound of camel bells echoing through the valley, traders resting under the same cliffs where you stand. Locals will tell you Cohaito's stones still hum at dusk. Whether that's myth or wind, it feels like a place where time folds over itself, a living echo of an empire long gone but never forgotten. A few miles away lies Matera, another ancient Aksumite city that once buzzed with merchants trading cloth, spices, and obsidian. What remains today are mysterious obelisks, burial chambers, and inscribed stones written in Ge'ez, the ancient language of the highlands, still sung in Eritrean churches today. These aren't just ruins. They're fingerprints of a civilization that once connected Africa to Asia and the Mediterranean, centuries before globalization had a name. Here's the thing. We often talk about the pyramids or Greece when we mention ancient civilizations. But Aksum was right there in that same league, minting its own coins, writing its own language, and commanding trade networks that stretched across 3 continents. And Eritrea was its northern gateway, the first face that greeted ships from Arabia, Persia, and beyond. One of the most stunning discoveries here came from Buya, a small village near the desert. In 1995, scientists unearthed a hominid skull estimated to be 1 million years old, one of the oldest human fossils ever found. Let that sink in for a moment. 1 million years. It rewrote what scientists thought they knew about human evolution in East Africa. Eritrea isn't just old, it's prehistoric. The land itself feels ancient, like the cradle of time. It's surreal to think that on one side of the country, you can sip a macchiato in an Art Deco cafe, and on the other, stand in a place where the first humans walked. That's Eritrea's magic.
Only macchiato.
Modernity and antiquity coexisting, not in conflict, but in rhythm. But history here isn't just something you dig up, it's something you live. Eritrea has 9 recognized ethnic groups, each with its own language, music, and rituals. The Tigrinya, the Tigre, the Afar, the Saho, and more. All different threads that somehow weave into one fabric. The result isn't chaos, it's harmony, like a mosaic where every piece belongs exactly where it is. And if you want to feel this heartbeat, don't just visit the ruins. Join a coffee ceremony. Eritreans don't drink coffee, they celebrate it. Green beans roasted over an open flame, the aroma wrapping around you like incense. Popcorn served as a small offering of hospitality. The coffee is brewed slowly in a jabena, a clay pot with a long spout, and poured in 3 rounds, each one symbolizing friendship, community, and respect. It's not just caffeine, it's a connection. You'll realize quickly that Eritrea's greatest strength isn't in its monuments or museums, it's in its people. Neighbors gather, families linger, and time stretches. The same patience that preserved Aksum's ruins seems to live in its culture, a quiet defiance against the rush of modern life. And yet, beneath that calm, Eritrea's story hasn't been gentle. Centuries of conquest, colonialism, and conflict left scars, but never submission. Each empire left its mark, but none could erase what was already written in stone, language, and soul. Next, we'll dive into those layers, how Ottoman mosques, Egyptian forts, and Italian cathedrals all coexist along the same shore. Because to understand Eritrea's beauty, you have to see how it absorbed the world and still stayed unmistakably itself. Empires on the shore, where worlds collide. Stand on the docks of Massawa and you can almost hear it, the sound of centuries rushing past each other. This city isn't just old, it's layered. Every stone, every archway tells a story of a world long gone. Ottoman, Egyptian, Italian, stitched together by the salty Red Sea breeze. Massawa's old town sits on coral islands, connected by narrow causeways that shimmer under the heat. The first thing that hits you isn't noise, it's the silence. Then comes the rhythm of waves lapping against walls made from coral limestone, the same material that gives the city its ghostly white glow. Locals call it Batsi Masewa, the White City, faded, cracked, but breathtaking. The Ottomans built the first forts here in the 16th century, drawn by the Red Sea's strategic importance. Walk the alleyways, and you'll spot their influence in arched doorways, domed mosques, and wooden balconies etched with intricate geometric patterns. Centuries later, the Egyptians left their marks: administrative offices, small forts, and a few governmental imprints. Then came the Italians, reshaping Massawa's streets into a seaside playground of colonial architecture. Piazzas, warehouses, lighthouses, and port buildings with a Mediterranean flair. But the sea has seen it all: traders, conquerors, refugees, and fishermen. In its quiet way, Massawa has always been Eritrea's storyteller. Every building whispers tales of ambition, commerce, and survival. One of the most haunting spots is the war-damaged district. Bullet holes perforate walls. Roofs have collapsed. Yet life continues. Kids play soccer in front of ruins. Families hang laundry between broken walls. Elderly men sit on wooden benches, smoking shisha, recounting stories of Ottoman sailors or Italian merchants. The city doesn't hide its scars. It coexists with them, carrying memories forward without letting them define the present. Just off the coast lie the Dahlak Islands, where nature has reclaimed what humans abandoned. Some islands were once salt mining hubs, others secret military outposts. Today, mangroves thrive, sea turtles glide, and coral reefs flourish untouched. Underwater archaeologists have found shipwrecks dating back hundreds of years. Ottoman galleons, Italian merchant vessels, even World War II warships. Now silent guardians beneath the waves. In some coves, fishermen still dive for sea cucumbers and lobsters, continuing a practice that hasn't changed in centuries. It's almost invisible to the outside world. While tourists flock to Zanzibar or the Seychelles, Eritrea's islands remain empty, a diver's paradise, a historian's dream, a place where solitude and discovery walk hand in hand. The coastline's beauty isn't flashy. It's restrained. It doesn't demand attention. It rewards curiosity. Walk slowly. Look closely. The same coral blocks that built Ottoman mosques now support Italian balconies. The same streets that once carried caravan traders now echo with bicycles, scooters, and fishermen hauling their nets. Morning markets fill the air with the scent of grilled fish and spices. Children weave between stalls, calling out prices in Tigrinya and Tigre. Life pulses quietly but persistently. Here's a paradox. Eritrea's isolation, often viewed as a setback, turned into preservation. No mass tourism, no commercial development, just raw authenticity, untouched, unpolished, and timeless. And when you stand by the shore at sunset, watching the sea turn red like molten glass, it's easy to understand why the Greeks called it Erythra Thalassa, the Red Sea. The name Eritrea itself, derived from that phrase, is a linguistic fossil, a testament to millennia of trade, travel, and cultural exchange. It truly is the land of the sea. Yet this isn't a story of ruins alone. Eritrea's past lives in its people. From the fishermen of Massawa mending their nets to engineers restoring the old railway lines, there's a quiet pride here. an unspoken continuity between past and present. The same resilience that resisted empires flows through daily life, in small rituals, communal gatherings, and a way of living that honors history while moving forward. Street musicians play traditional instruments at twilight, blending old melodies with the rhythm of the Red Sea waves. It's in these small moments that you feel the heartbeat of a nation. And that's what we'll explore next. How these layers of past and present merge in daily Eritrean life. From coffee ceremonies to bustling markets, from ancient traditions to modern ingenuity, this is where Eritrea truly comes alive. The soul of Eritrea, culture, coffee, and community. You can't really understand Eritrea through ruins or coastlines alone. To know this country, you have to sit down, slow down, and share a cup of coffee. Because here, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a ceremony, a rhythm, a conversation. It starts with the sound of beans being roasted over charcoal. The smell fills the room, thick, nutty, almost sweet. Then comes the grinding, the bubbling, and finally the pouring from a curved jabina, a traditional clay pot. The host serves 3 rounds, awo, kalei, bereka, each one slightly weaker than the last, but stronger in meaning. It's not rushed, it's social glue. A single coffee ceremony can last an hour, and no one's checking their phone. And while you're sitting there, you notice how Eritrea's 9 ethnic groups blend together: Tigrinya, Tigray, Afar, Saho, Bilen, Kunama, Nara, Rashaida, Hedereb. Each with their own languages, clothing, and music, yet somehow deeply connected. There's pride in difference, but never division. That's rare. You might hear stories about how weddings can last 3 days, filled with dancing, drums, and shimmering white garments embroidered with gold. Or about the tilo, a spicy barley dish served with bare hands, symbolizing trust and friendship. Eritrea's culture is built around togetherness. It's less about luxury, more about shared experience. Markets hum with life, vendors call out prices in multiple languages, and children weave around. Shoppers laughing, carrying bundles of fresh bread or spices. And that shows in how people treat each other. Whether you're a visitor or a neighbor, you'll be greeted with warmth. Eritreans don't do performative hospitality. They do real hospitality. You're offered food before you're asked for your name. You're included before you're evaluated. It's a community in its purest form. Then there's the art and music. Eritrean Tigrinya songs that mix traditional drums with electric guitar riffs. Street painters in Asmara capture daily life on weathered canvases. Even graffiti here feels poetic, colorful, symbolic, unafraid. It's easy to forget that Eritrea's been through decades of hardship, colonization, wars, and isolation. But maybe that's why the people treasure joy so fiercely. They've learned to celebrate the simple: good coffee, laughter, clean streets, calm evenings. There's dignity in small things here. Walk through a market in Kirin or Mendefera, and you'll feel it. the pulse of daily life, the chatter, the barter, the smell of incense and fresh bread. Every vendor seems to know everyone. Children help parents with small tasks. Neighbors pause to chat, sharing news, advice, or a quick joke. There's no tourist gloss, just authenticity. And then there's something almost cinematic about how it all fits together. You can stand on a hill overlooking Asmara and see the sunset burn across the rooftops, the sound of church bells blending with the call to prayer. It's not chaos, it's coexistence, a living harmony between faiths, languages, and histories. Eritrea might not have the glitz of Cape Town or the fame of Cairo, but that's its secret weapon. It's unfiltered, it's grounded, it's real. The kind of place that reminds you that travel isn't about what you see. It's about what stays with you. Because long after you leave, you'll still remember that first sip of coffee. The coralstone streets, the way time felt slower, softer, the warmth of a smile offered freely. Eritrea doesn't shout to be remembered. It whispers, and that's why you never forget it. Beyond the coast, Eritrea's highlands and hidden treasures. Leave the sea behind for a moment, and you're climbing into Eritrea's highlands, a world that feels entirely different, yet intimately connected to the coast. The landscape shifts from flat, sandy plains to rolling hills, volcanic peaks, and terraced farms that seem carved by hand. Air gets thinner, cooler, fresher, carrying the scent of eucalyptus, coffee blossoms, and soil freshly turned for planting. Every step upward feels like peeling back another layer of history. Here, the highlands are dotted with villages that seem untouched by time. Children run along narrow stone paths, goats scramble across rooftops, and smoke curls lazily from clay chimneys. People still wear traditional garments, embroidered with intricate patterns unique to each ethnic group. It's a living museum where daily life is art and survival has its own elegance. The highlands also hold Eritrea's agricultural backbone. Sorghum, barley, and wheat grow in terraces that stretch along the slopes like green staircases. Farmers tend their crops using techniques passed down through generations, blending practicality with respect for the land. And the coffee, oh, the coffee. Some of Eritrea's finest beans originate here, nurtured in the shade of jacaranda and fig trees before they make their way to a jabina in an Asmara cafe. History whispers everywhere. In the mountains near Koheto and Matera, ancient trade routes climb rocky passes, connecting the highlands to the Red Sea ports centuries ago. Travelers use these paths to carry incense, ivory, and spices, moving silently between civilizations. You can still spot remnants of old stone bridges and carved inscriptions that survived earthquakes, invasions, and centuries of wind. The highlands are also a sanctuary for wildlife. Ibexes balance along cliff edges, colorful birds dart through juniper forests, and endemic plants. Many species unknown outside Eritrea thrive in this isolated ecosystem. For adventurers, the highlands are a playground of hiking, photography, and quiet contemplation. offering views that stretch from rugged mountains to the shimmering Red Sea far below. And it's not just nature and history. Human stories are woven into every village. Elders tell tales of resistance and survival, of kingdoms that ruled trade routes, and of families that nurtured generations under harsh conditions, yet never lost joy. Festivals in these towns, complete with drums, dancing, and songs in Tigrinya and Tigre, feel intimate, as though the hills themselves are celebrating with you. Traveling from the coast to the highlands, you notice a common thread: Eritrea's balance of endurance and beauty. From coral limestone cities to volcanic peaks, the country has preserved its identity through centuries of change. Each corner, whether sea or mountain, tells a story of people who adapt, survive, and celebrate life in every way possible. By the time you descend back toward the plains, you realize Eritrea isn't just a destination. It's a continuum. A place where coastlines, cities, mountains, and culture aren't separate experiences but chapters of a single narrative, waiting for travelers willing to slow down, look closely, and listen. And now, with the highlands behind us and the coast still shimmering in memory, it's time to step into the future, to the Red Sea frontier, where Eritrea's promise meets possibility. The Red Sea frontier, Eritrea's future and its forgotten promise. Standing on Eritrea's coastline today feels like standing on a threshold, the edge between what was and what could be. The Red Sea stretches endlessly eastward, a mirror of light and history. Across it lie Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and beyond that the trade routes that once made this region the heartbeat of the ancient world. The question now is, can Eritrea reclaim that pulse? Geographically, it's perfectly positioned. The country sits on one of the world's most strategic waterways. Nearly 10% of global trade passes through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, just south of Eritrea's Dahlak Islands. Oil tankers, container ships, and military fleets all cross these waters daily. But here's the twist. Eritrea's own ports, Massawa and Asab, are almost untouched by modern commerce. They're relics waiting for revival. Massawa, for instance, has deep water potential rivaling any Red Sea port. With infrastructure investment, it could reconnect East Africa to global trade routes. But politics, sanctions, and decades of isolation have kept that dream on pause. Recently, however, quiet partnerships and renewed diplomacy hint that things might be shifting. Roads are being repaired. Talks of port rehabilitation are resurfacing. Eritrea might be ready to open up again, but the country faces a dilemma: how to modernize without losing its soul. The very isolation that preserved its coral towns and Art Deco skylines also protected its authenticity. And that's what travelers find magnetic here. If tourism ever takes off, it'll need to do so carefully, slow, sustainable, and respectful of the culture that's been shielded for decades. Imagine eco-lodges across the Dahlak Islands powered by solar energy, divers exploring shipwrecks under guided conservation programs, small guest houses serving locally grown coffee instead of international chains. Eritrea has the potential to become Africa's most sustainable coastal destination, not by competing with others, but by staying true to itself. Then, there's the human side of the future. A young generation is growing up in Asmara, educated, creative, and quietly ambitious. You'll see them sketching in cafes, restoring vintage cars, and filming on old cinema cameras. They're blending heritage with innovation, mixing traditional Tigrinya music with electronic beats, designing clothes that combine Italian tailoring with local textiles. It's not nostalgia, it's reinvention. And when you talk to them, they don't describe Eritrea as forgotten. They call it misunderstood. A country waiting for the world to look again, to see beyond headlines and politics. And when that happens, when people rediscover this coastline, this city, this culture, it won't feel like discovery at all. It'll feel like a reunion, because everything about Eritrea, its coral cities, its volcanic islands, its patient spirit, has been here all along, quietly persisting. So, if you ever find yourself on the edge of the Red Sea, watching the light shift across the water, remember, you're standing on one of the oldest crossroads of civilization. A place that once connected continents and still connects stories. Eritrea doesn't need reinvention. It just needs recognition. And maybe, just maybe, the world is finally ready to remember Africa's forgotten coastline. Eritrea may not be on your travel bucket list yet, but maybe it should be. It's one of those rare places that feels untouched, where you can stand on ancient ruins, swim in coral reefs few have ever seen, and sip coffee roasted the same way it was 1,000 years ago. It's Africa's hidden coastline, mysterious, raw, and breathtakingly alive. If you enjoyed discovering this forgotten shore, hit subscribe, because the next journey might just take you somewhere even more unexpected. What if I told you there's a real place on Earth that evolved almost as if it existed on a different planet? An island where nature broke the rules, rewrote evolution, and created life forms found nowhere else on Earth. A place scientists call one of the strangest biological experiments in history. This is Madagascar, an ancient mystery disguised as an island. A world that drifted away long before humans ever existed. Most people think they know Madagascar, but the version you're imagining is only 1% of the story. If you stay with me for the next few minutes, you'll discover how this island became Earth's most mysterious anomaly, and why what's happening there right now could rewrite everything we think we know about life on our planet. The island that drifted away from time. Picture a colossal chunk of land quietly drifting away from India, millions of years before humans even existed. No witnesses, no maps. Just a silent voyage through the Indian Ocean. That's how Madagascar began its long, lonely story, floating 400 kilometers off Africa's east coast. While continents collided and reshaped the planet, Madagascar stayed apart, isolated, undisturbed. It became a natural laboratory where evolution wasn't rushed. It experimented. The result? Life forms so bizarre they could have stepped out of a dream. When biologists first arrived here, they couldn't believe what they found. Lemurs, tiny primates with golden eyes, leaping through ancient forests untouched for millennia. Chameleons that change color like living jewels. And plants that looks like they were designed by a sculptor with no concept of symmetry. More than 90% of Madagascar's species exist nowhere else on Earth, not even in neighboring Africa. Think about that. Almost an entire ecosystem invented from scratch. Scientists sometimes call it a mini-continent, but that feels too small for the imagination this island holds. And then there are the baobabs, those massive trees that look like someone flipped the world upside down. Locals say they were planted by the gods in anger, roots reaching for the sky. Some of them are over 800 years old, standing guard over the red earth like ancient sentinels. Walk among them and you feel it, that eerie sense that the world around you is older than time itself. But Madagascar isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living, breathing ecosystem still evolving. Every forest here hums differently. The east glows with rainforests that trap clouds in their canopy. The south is all spiny desert, alien, sharp, and stubbornly alive. And in between, savannas roll across the highlands, home to people who've learned to live within nature's unpredictable moods. Its separation made it a biological time capsule, but isolation comes at a cost. Over centuries, the same distance that protected Madagascar's wildlife also cut it off from help. Deforestation, poverty, and illegal logging now carve away at the edges of its beauty. The irony? The island that survived alone for 88 million years might struggle most because of the world that finally found it. But still, there's something resilient here. Maybe it's in the rhythm of the Malagasy people, whose ancestors came not from Africa, but from Indonesia. Imagine that journey across the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles by canoe. They brought language, rice cultivation, and their own myths, blending them with African roots into one of the world's most unique cultures. The island's very name was a mistake. Marco Polo confused it with Mogadishu. But the identity that grew here, that's no accident. It's an evolution of its own, a fusion of sea roots, migrations, and survival. And just when you think you understand this island, you meet the creatures that don't play by any rules of nature, you know. Some hunt like ghosts, some vanish into rock, and some, they've never been filmed in daylight. The strangest cast nature ever created. Stepping into Madagascar's forests is like stepping into another planet's idea of Earth. Everything here moves differently, sounds different, and even feels different. The air is thick with humidity, and bird calls you can't place. Leaves shimmer in impossible greens. And then something rustles above. Two golden eyes watch you, unblinking. That's a lemur, the island's unofficial mascot, and the symbol of everything that makes Madagascar so otherworldly. Lemurs aren't just cute tree huggers. They're survivors of an ancient lineage that broke off from other primates tens of millions of years ago. While monkeys and apes evolved elsewhere, lemurs took their own path, adapting to rainforests, deserts, and mountaintops. Some are as small as your hand. Others, like the Indri, sing morning duets that echo across the canopy like flutes. Their songs aren't just beautiful. They're territorial markers, emotional bonds, even lullabies for their young. And here's a fact most people don't know. Lemurs exist only in Madagascar. Not one species anywhere else on Earth. When you realize that, every encounter feels like watching the last pages of a living encyclopedia, still being written, but fading fast. Then there's the fossa, Madagascar's top predator. It looks like a sleek cat but moves like a weasel and hunts like a shadow. The fossa can leap between branches with eerie silence, ambushing lemurs midair. It's neither fully feline nor canine, just fossa, the island's own evolutionary invention. But Madagascar doesn't stop at predators. It's the chameleon capital of the world, home to more than half of all known species. There's the tiny Brachycia micra, small enough to stand on your fingertip, and the massive Parsons chameleon, longer than a human forearm. Their eyes rotate independently like miniature radar dishes, scanning for insects. When they strike, their tongues shoot out faster than a blink, literally. Scientists call Madagascar a genetic treasure chest, because isolation gave evolution free rein. Without lions or elephants, smaller species rose to fill the gaps. Nature went experimental, mixing features, trying odd combinations, seeing what worked. And somehow, it all did. But it's not just animals. The island's plants are just as strange. Baobabs with trunks thick as buses, spiny forests that look like coral reefs flipped upside down, orchids that bloom only once a decade, and only if a specific moth pollinates them. Darwin himself predicted the moth before it was even discovered, based on the flower's anatomy alone. That's Madagascar. It doesn't just surprise you. It proves your imagination wasn't big enough. And yet, for all this wonder, much of it remains unknown. Over 100 new species are discovered here every year. Frogs the size of coins. Lizards that mimic bark so perfectly you'd step on one and never know. Every expedition rewrites the island's biology textbooks. As night falls, glowing eyes appear among the trees and the air fills with soft clicks, songs, and whispers. Madagascar may be fragile, but it's still alive, still rewriting nature's script under the cover of darkness. And hidden within that darkness lies a landscape even stranger than its wildlife, where stone itself seems alive, and the earth rises like blades of glass. The stone forest and the bones beneath. At first glance, Madagascar looks lush, soft, and green, but then the landscape cracks open, and you find yourself staring at something that looks almost extraterrestrial. Imagine a forest made of knives. Thousands of limestone spires rising like frozen waves stretch as far as the horizon. Locals call it Tsingi, which in Malagasy means where one cannot walk barefoot. It's not poetic exaggeration. The rock is razor sharp. One slip and the earth itself will cut you open. This is the Tsingi de Bemaraha, one of the most surreal places on the planet. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's part canyon, part maze, part cathedral. Sculpted over millions of years by rain and wind, the formations reach up to 70 meters tall, creating a labyrinth so complex that even sunlight struggles to find its way down. In some areas, bridges hang between stone towers, swaying over voids that seem to go on forever. But life, as always in Madagascar, found a way to thrive in the impossible. Inside this stone jungle live creatures that shouldn't logically exist here. Tiny lemurs leaping across spires, geckos that vanish into the rock, birds nesting in crevices no human foot has ever reached. It's nature's paradox, a place that looks dead but pulses with hidden life. Scientists say the Tsingi is like an open-air time capsule. The limestone itself was once part of an ancient seabed, full of fossilized shells and coral. When Madagascar drifted away from India, this ocean floor was lifted up and sculpted by time. Walk here, and you're literally stepping on the bones of an ancient sea, now turned to stone. But beyond its alien beauty, the Tsingi tells a story about resilience. The people who live near it, the Sakalava, have adapted to the landscape, just as remarkably as the wildlife. They use narrow paths known only to them, climbing cliffs with hands and feet hardened by generations. For them, the Tsingi isn't just geography, it's sacred. They believe spirits live in its shadows, guarding the passage between the living and the dead. Travelers still leave offerings of honey, rum, or cloth at the edges before venturing in, not out of fear, but respect. And then there's the Avenue of the Baobabs, not far from here. A stretch of dirt road lined with colossal trees that look like they've been planted upside down. Some are over 800 years old, their trunks swollen like water tanks, storing moisture to survive the dry season. At sunset, the sky turns gold, and the baobabs stand like silent witnesses to centuries of droughts, wars, and rebirths. It's the kind of view that freezes time, as if the island itself is reminding you how long it's been here, and how briefly you'll stay. Underneath this landscape lies another story, one written not by stone, but by bones. Madagascar's fossil beds have revealed ancient giants, elephant birds taller than a man, pygmy, hippos that once waded through its swamps, and lemurs as big as gorillas. All extinct now, all clues to a lost world that evolution once painted here. And yet, the island still whispers their memory, in footprints, in rituals, in the songs of those who remember. Because here, the line between life and death, past and present, isn't a line at all. It's a circle, one that still turns. And if you follow that circle, it leads straight into the heart of Madagascar's living soul. Its people, a culture built from 2 continents, countless ancestors, and 1,000 stories still unfolding. The people of 2 worlds. If Madagascar's landscapes feel like they belong to another planet, its people feel like they belong to 2, because they do. The Malagasy trace their ancestry to both Southeast Asia and East Africa, an extraordinary human blend that still puzzles historians. Thousands of years ago, Austronesian voyagers sailed across the Indian Ocean in wooden canoes, guided only by stars and currents. They carried rice, bananas, and their language, the same linguistic roots spoken in Borneo and Sulawesi. When they landed on this island, they met African migrants from across the Mozambique Channel, and the fusion that followed created something utterly unique, the Malagasy identity. You can hear it in their language, a melodic tongue that sounds more like Polynesian than African. You can see it in their faces, fine features, coiled hair, almond eyes, echoes of 2 oceans meeting. And you can feel it in the rhythm of their lives. Rice paddies shimmer in the highlands, just as they do in Indonesia. But on the coast, African drums and rituals pulse through the air at night. Every gesture, every song, is a bridge between 2 worlds. But identity here isn't just about ancestry. It's about continuity. The Malagasy live close to their ancestors, not metaphorically, but literally. Every few years, families perform famadihana, the turning of the bones. It's not a funeral, it's a reunion. They exhume their ancestors' remains, rewrap them in fresh silk, and dance with them to the rhythm of drums and accordions. There's laughter, music, and storytelling, because to them, death isn't an ending. It's a second conversation. When you see a grandmother holding the bones of her own grandmother, smiling, spinning, singing, you realize that in Madagascar, memory is alive. This deep respect for ancestry extends to their beliefs about the land. Many sacred forests are protected not by law, but by fedi, traditional taboos. Cutting certain trees, hunting specific animals, or even whistling in certain places is forbidden. To outsiders, it might seem superstitious, but it's actually a cultural form of environmental protection. Fadi kept entire ecosystems safe for centuries, long before conservation became a word. Despite their deep traditions, Malagasy people are also pragmatic survivors. Madagascar is among the world's poorest nations, but you wouldn't know it by its resilience. In towns like Antananarivo, life is vibrant. Streets hum with zebu carts, tuk-tuks, and markets bursting with color. Craftsmen weave silk, carve zebu horns, and turn recycled cans into model cars that look like toys, but carry pride. This blend of hardship and ingenuity defines the island's heartbeat. And even through poverty, there's a remarkable grace, a sense that community matters more than wealth. Children walk miles to school, with laughter that echoes louder than their hunger. Families share what little they have, not because they can, but because they must. Walk through a village at sunset, and you'll see kids chasing each other through rice fields, old men repairing fishing nets, and women pounding cassava into rhythm. It's a kind of harmony that feels both ancient and enduring, as if the island itself taught them patience. And that balance is what makes Madagascar feel eternal, because on this island, every generation rewrites the same story: how to live with nature, not over it. Some of that story still lies offshore, in its turquoise waters and coral kingdoms, where another world entirely waits, shimmering just beneath the surface. The ocean that guards the island. From the sky, Madagascar looks like a tear falling into the Indian Ocean, and maybe that's what it is. A piece of land forever pulled between solitude and connection. The ocean is both its shield and its challenge. It kept the island isolated for 88 million years, protecting its creatures, shaping its people. But today, it also defines their survival. Down on the coast, everything moves to the rhythm of the tide. The Vezo people, often called the nomads of the sea, live in villages built from mangrove wood and sail the turquoise shallows in hand-carved pirogues. Their boats have no engines, just wind and memory. They read the ocean like a living map, where the currents twist, where the fish sleep, where the storms whisper before they break. For the Vezo, the sea isn't a boundary. It's home. And beneath those calm waves lies one of the world's most beautiful and most endangered marine ecosystems. Madagascar's coral reefs stretch along thousands of kilometers of coastline, glowing with life in every color you can imagine. Clownfish dart through anemones. Sea turtles glide past coral gardens. It looks eternal, but it isn't. Rising sea temperatures and overfishing are slowly unthreading the fabric of this underwater world. The irony runs deep. The same isolation that preserved Madagascar's land for millions of years can't protect its seas from global warming. In some regions, entire coral fields have bleached ghost white, like underwater graveyards. Yet in others, conservation groups are working with local fishermen to restore reefs by hand, one coral fragment at a time. It's slow, back-breaking work, but it's also hope, rooted in salt water. The ocean feeds more than half the island. From dawn till dusk, fishermen push out their canoes, and by evening, markets fill with silver flashes of mackerel, lobster, and squid. There's no refrigeration, no middleman, just ocean, labor, and faith. Every fish caught is a day's wage, every storm a gamble. And yet, even in hardship, the sea gives rhythm to their lives. Along the east coast, the cyclones come each year like clockwork, reshaping shorelines and washing away roads. Yet somehow, the people rebuild again and again. The ocean tests them, but it also teaches them endurance. In Madagascar, survival is a dialogue with nature. You don't conquer it, you negotiate. Standing on the cliffs of the northern coast near Diego Suarez, the view is almost deceptive. Emerald bays, wind-sculpted rocks and waters so clear they look painted. But beyond that, beauty lies a deeper truth. This ocean, for all its calm, hides centuries of stories. Arab traders, Indonesian voyagers, African migrants, they all came by sea. The currents that shaped the land also carried cultures, faiths, and trade. The ocean is how Madagascar met the world, and how the world first misunderstood it. Marco Polo never set foot here, yet his error gave the island its name. A simple mix-up, and suddenly, history had a new word: Madagascar. The sea, as always, makes and unmakes the world's maps. Today, new travelers come the same way, chasing not spices or empire, but wonder. Divers explore shipwrecks turned to coral havens. Scientists track migrating whales through underwater canyons, and coastal children, barefoot and sunburned, chase crabs through the tide pools, as if learning the ocean's language by heart. But the real story of this sea isn't told in data or maps. It's in the way it holds the island, gently, dangerously, endlessly. And when the sun drops behind the horizon and the waves turn to silver, you start to understand. Madagascar isn't just surrounded by the ocean, it's defined by it. Still, beyond its reefs and coasts lies something even more mysterious, a future written by its own contradictions. Because this island, ancient and fragile, is standing at a crossroads, the choice between preservation and progress. Madagascar's fragile future. Madagascar has always lived on the edge of continents, of ecosystems, of time itself. But now, it's balancing on a new edge, one carved by human hands. Every year, more of its forests vanish. The trees that once shaded lemurs and chameleons fall to fires and axes. Villagers burn land for crops. Because when you have to feed your children today, tomorrow feels like another country. It's called Tavy, slash and burn agriculture, a centuries-old survival tactic that's slowly consuming the island's lungs. The numbers are brutal. In just 6 decades, Madagascar has lost over 40% of its forests. With them go species found nowhere else on Earth. Tiny frogs that glow like jewels, orchids that bloom once a decade, and lemurs whose songs might soon be silenced forever. Scientists say, if the trend continues, more than half of Madagascar's species could disappear within our lifetime. But the story isn't just about loss, because even here, hope roots deep, like the baobab. Across the island, communities are rewriting what survival means. In the northeast, villagers are planting mangroves, learning that a living coastline protects both fish and families. In Ranomafana, women's cooperatives are turning wild silk into fashion, proof that nature's gifts don't have to be destroyed to have value. And in the highlands, reforestation teams rise with the mist, carrying seedlings in baskets, planting one dream at a time. Each tree is a small rebellion against despair, The world is watching, but slowly. Madagascar isn't a headline country. It doesn't have oil or gold or armies. It has lemurs, forests, and a story too quiet for breaking news. Yet, in a century of climate change, this island is a warning wrapped in wonder, a glimpse of what happens when isolation meets exploitation. Satellite images show the wounds, brown scars spreading across green. But on the ground, children still run barefoot through rice fields, laughing under skies that look impossibly blue. They grow up knowing lemurs not as cartoons, but as neighbors. And maybe that's where the island's future begins, not in policies or pledges, but in that bond between people and place, because for all its strangeness, Madagascar's story is our own. A tale of beauty and damage, of species adapting or vanishing under pressures we created. It asks a quiet question. Can we learn to live with the wild before the wild forgets how to live with us? And as the sun sets over the avenue of the baobabs, those ancient trees stand like sentinels, watching, waiting. They've survived everything the earth has thrown their way. The question now is, will we let them survive us? So, what is Madagascar, really? It's not just an island you visit. It's a place that stays with you, a land that keeps its heartbeat steady between two worlds, the one that survives untouched and the one that struggles to endure. You come chasing lemurs and baobabs, but what you remember are the people, the forests, the ocean, the Vezo fishermen balancing on a pirogue at sunrise, reading the waves like they were written in the stars. The farmer in the highlands, planting rice by hand, following rhythms older than any calendar. The elder in a Chingi village, pointing to jagged spires, telling stories of spirits and ancestors who walk between stone and sky. Here, time doesn't flow in straight lines. And as you leave, you realize Madagascar isn't just a nature documentary. The forests, the coast, the stone forests, they were only the entry point. The real journey is into survival, resilience, and wonder itself. Because this is an island that refuses to be simplified. It's not just baobabs, not just lemurs, not just coral or tsingy. It's the space between them, where the wild meets the human, where the ancient meets the urgent, where life persists, fragile but defiant. That's Madagascar. Not a destination, a revelation.